How much importance do we really place on using our five senses? Most of us know the value of smell, taste, sight, and sound. But how much do we rely on those senses with our acting? Better yet, can we use our five senses with our emotions? Take, for example, humor. Exactly what does funny smell like? Sounds crazy, right? Well, stick around, because I will take on the important subject of your sense of humor. Get it? Not sense of humor, but sense of humor. On this episode of Casting Actors Cast.
It's time for another episode of Casting Actors Cast, insights for actors from a casting director. Here he is, your host, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm casting partner Jeffrey Dreisbach with the McCorkle Group in New York. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to sharing about this episode. The sense of humor is a subject I've wanted to take on for a little while now, and I hope you enjoy the subject matter for today's show. But first, this is that moment of the podcast where I get to say thank you for tuning into Casting Actors Cast. It's an absolute pleasure to bring these episodes to you. I encourage you to check out the website, castingactorscast, all one word.com. There you're going to find some additional information like the places you can download the podcast. There's a place in the website called Jeff's Jots, which is sort of a bloggy kind of thing, but it corresponds to each of the episodes. There's also a form on the landing page that says dive into the talent pool. If you do that, it's going to open up some freebies. One is a 100-page book on doing voiceover work. It's absolutely free, I promise you, called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio, the voiceover workshop for professional actors. Additionally, you will get, if you're interested, in a 20-minute video called Casting Secrets, What They Don't Tell You. But I'm going to tell you in this absolutely free 20-minute video as well. All you do is give me your name and your email address. By the way, I don't do anything with that. On occasion, I might send out an announcement about an upcoming episode, but this is not about me selling your name or any of that kind of stuff at all. I don't want to chew up your bandwidth after all. So also just a shout out for those of you who might be interested in having your self-tape evaluated. Please go to castingactorscast@gmail.com. That's my Gmail address. You can ask me questions, but if you have a self-tape that you want evaluated free, live, on the air, then please go ahead and send that to me. And if you do send it to me, that means that you're giving me permission to use it in an upcoming podcast. There's been a lot of success with these podcasts about your self-tapes, and so I'm happy to deliver that to you. Anyway, that's our housekeeping. Oh, by the way, my shout out to my good friends at Actors Connection. Please do check them out. actorsconnection.com/New York. You know what? I love being punny. Not funny, but punny. I got it from my dad, I think. Here's an example. A skunk, a deer, and a duck went out to dinner. When it came time to pay, the skunk didn't have a cent, and the deer didn't have a buck, so they put the meal on the duck's bill. Come on, that's funny. Here's another one. I wear 2 different deodorants. Did you know that? Yeah, one for each armpit, but you know what? That's just my 2 cents. Sense of humor is kind of just a fun way of talking about the serious subject of comedy. You know what? I realize that there is not a lot to find humorous these days with everything that's going on. Yet, I have to say, having an understanding of our acting can benefit from our sense of humor. We can create unique choices. All right, so let's go ahead and take a moment. Let's put the outside away from us. Let's just stay focused on being in the moment today as I share, and let's look at what makes something funny. Of course, first and foremost, a sense of humor is subjective and not objective. So, for example, you see a man walking down the street. You also see on the sidewalk a banana peel. The man walks and you know he's going to be slipping on the banana peel, and sure enough, he slips on the banana peel and he falls. Because you see that happening, and because of who you are, you see and experience that, man, it's a subjective situation that makes that funny. In an objective environment, that man walking down the street slips on the banana peel and falls. Frankly, objectively speaking, there's really nothing quite funny about that. Somebody getting hurt or slipping and falling is not funny, but that's our objective point of view. So once we understand that this is a subjective situation, our own life experience, our own background, our own sense of timing, all of those things contribute to the subjective point of view, and that's what makes something humorous. Number two, I think humor comes in an interesting way. I think it's exaggerated, or it's sort of heightened reality. My best example of that is thinking about situation comedy. It's really kind of a little bit more than a normal person goes through. So when there's an exaggerated sense of the scenario or a heightened reality, then we can frame that environment in a humorous way. Number three, unusual behavior. Unusual behavior can be quite shocking and can come at us in a very surprising way. And when a character does something that surprises us, that sometimes is perceived in our subjective reality as something funny. Number four, unexpected reactions from another to a situation or a statement that's said. When something is unexpected and comes as a surprise, something coming from the character, that becomes, in and of itself, something, because it's unexpected, the shock value of that can oftentimes be perceived as being humorous. Number five, relatable circumstances that we identify with. How many times have you seen in a film or a television show or even on stage, you see somebody doing something that reminds you of something that you've done? That kind of self-deprecating situation can be funny because we relate to it. So a relatable circumstance that we identify with is also the basis of a lot of humor. So now, using those 5 criteria about what humor is, we can now ask the question, how do we use any or all of these elements in our acting choices? Well, number one, find the serious in the funny and the funny in the serious. I mean it. When you deliver something that is inherently funny, seriously, many, many times that exaggerates the situation, and therefore it becomes even more funny. And the funny in the serious, meaning even in the most serious situation, when it's delivered in a light-hearted way, many, many times makes it feel even more serious. I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. Number 2, apply the basic rules of joke telling to your humor in your acting. So it's not just about reading and delivering a situation comedy kind of line, but it is something to really relate to in terms of what joke telling can represent. The setup, then the delivery or the punchline, the timing. Those basic rules of comedy can really be something that you can filter with your acting to see if it becomes more interesting, more effective, or becomes just a really cool choice. Now, number 3, when you're working on a piece that you perceive as being humorous or funny, please remember that it's either in the writing. In other words, the writing itself is really funny. Anybody could be saying these words and it would be funny to just about everybody. Or it's coming from the character, the unusual nature of the character, or the way that the character shares this information can in and of itself be rather funny. Or finally, it can be both. You can be a funny character delivering a funny line, and that oftentimes is something you see in an exaggerated context, which makes it extremely humorous and very, very funny. The other thing to work on if you're working on the humor of any kind of acting is ask if the circumstances warrant your funny choices. You see, if you try to apply something funny that necessarily wasn't written with the intention of being funny, it's a disaster. So it's not just about trying to be funny. It really is asking if the circumstances that the character finds itself in really warrants you taking a look at it from a humorous perspective. Continuing on with what I said a moment ago, even the most deadly scene can actually be more powerful, more deadly, if it's approached lightly. You've often had that experience. If you've got a serial killer and he's holding a knife and he's about to attack you, your character, and they do it with the smile on their face, that gives me the chills. That makes me kind of freak out even more. So even those scenes that are supposed to be really intense can actually become more intense when approached lightly. Now let's move on from there and ask the question, why is a sense of humor important to develop and maintain in the first place? Well, please know that as far as your acting is concerned, having a sense of humor is part of the human condition. We definitely need an outlet for emotional self-expression. Laughing and humor provides that. The other thing, it provides a depth of understanding and intelligence. See, it's always interesting to me that even with puns, there is sort of, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but those two jokes that I told at the beginning of the podcast, there is something smart about that. There is something smart because of the play on words. And there is a little bit more information that you can get from the person delivering the information when they have a sense of humor. So that level of intelligence and that depth of understanding can really be part of the human condition and part of the process, especially if you're working on a character. The other reason that humor is so important is it becomes something that becomes relatable, whether it's relatable to your audience or the other character that you're working with. It also has an empathetic quality that we can all identify with someone's laughter. We can all connect when someone delivers a punchline. It really is kind of a universal understanding, and it makes that character even more relatable than otherwise. The other thing that humor provides is what I love, and I talk about this quite frankly, is the shifts in energy, gear changes. Gear changes in any situation. And what I mean by gear changes is when there is a shift in the point of view, that demands a gear change, that you're taking me from one piece of information or emotion to another, requires some sort of shift in your energy. And that's what I call gear changes. Humor can oftentimes provide that bridge when going from one thought to another. Finally, contributes to the mood or the personality of the character. Having a sense of humor is one of those things that can create the atmosphere, create the tone, can create, like I said, the mood or the personality. All of those things can contribute in any given moment when humor is appropriately applied. Now, senses of humor, they can be pleasant, they could be dramatic, they can be silly, they can be, insane or healthy. It can smell like bananas, bonfires, babies, and bouquets. It can smell like a lot of other stuff too, if you know what I'm talking about. But know that growing your own sense of humor is yet another tool in your acting arsenal. It's available for you to try out even when you have a tryout. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. Thank you for listening and watching. This is Casting Actors Cast. Oh, brother.
Thank you for joining Casting Actors Cast. I'm Megan Grace Martinez.